good afternoon, brethren. I want to welcome and thank everyone for tuning in and joining us from the various locations from around the world for the broadcast of today's Sabbath message. Today's message will be delivered by David J. Smith, and it is titled, How Dangerous is the World Today? This is message number 1324. David J. first delivered this message on January 13th, 2007. And I'm your host today, Tim West. Well, before we get started into David's message today, I want to mention that I am currently working on a new format for the broadcast. Basically, I just want to sit down and be a little more relaxed during the broadcast. And I want to work more towards a guest style environment where I can invite guests to speak and to do interviews. So I'm working on getting the equipment that I need to accomplish that. Now, a couple of years ago, many of you sent funds directly to me so that I could upgrade my equipment. And at the time, I only purchased the bare minimum. And I still have the remaining funds. So, just so you know, any funds that you donate specifically for upgrading the broadcast will be used for that purpose. I will not squander the funds. They will always go towards getting God's Word out. Anyway, look for some changes in the near future. And let's get started with David's message today. Grab something to sip on, some lunch, or your favorite snack. Find a comfortable place to relax and enjoy today's message.
When we look around the world today, we see there's problems on every front. We see Iraq, we see Iran with its nuclear buildup. We see Pakistan, who has already developed nuclear weapons. India already has them. China, Russia, the United States, the United Kingdom, better known as Britain. And so we're living in a very, very dangerous world today. In 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 1, notice what it says. This know also that in the last days perilous times shall come. Now the word perilous means dangerous. So the question is, how dangerous is the world today? Is the Bible accurate when it says that? In Matthew chapter 24, verse 8, it says, after describing wars and rumors of wars, which means world wars and wars of revolution, it says, all these are the beginning of sorrows, just the beginning. What could be so awful that it would be more dangerous or more perilous after world wars and wars of liberation? What could come on the scene that would be even worse than that? Here's a direct quote from Osama bin Laden of November 2001. Quote, "It is not difficult to acquire nuclear weapons, not if you have contacts in Russia with other militant groups. They are available for $10 million and $20 million. End of quote. And then supposedly his right-hand man, Zawahiri, in November of 2002 made this statement, quote, "If you have 30 million to go to the black market in Central Asia, contact any disgruntled Soviet scientists. And a lot of smart briefcase bombs are available. They have contacted us. We sent our people to Moscow and other locations. And they have negotiated. And we purchased nuclear suitcase bombs." End of quote. Now, the beginning of the end of planet Earth, as we know it, occurred on September 27th, 1991, When President George H.W. Bush, that's the older Bush, proclaimed that the United States would withdraw its nuclear weapons from sites throughout the world if the Soviet Union would follow suit and withdraw their nuclear weapons. Of course, Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev agreed, because Mikhail Gorbachev was the one who stood up in their Politburo, like our Congress, and said, don't worry about the changes in the Soviet Union. They're only for cosmetic purposes. We'll make an agreement with the United States and they'll disarm, and then we'll smash them with our clenched fist. A deadline for this was set. The task was to be accomplished by the end of May of 1992. The process was greatly facilitated by the Non-Lugar Nuclear Threat Reduction Act that was passed in Congress. It provided the Russians with millions of dollars in funding to withdraw their nuclear weapons throughout Europe and then transport them to nuclear arsenals so that they could be stored. It was to be stored in 14 newly created Russian republics. All that was found in the book Nuclear Terrorism, the Ultimate Preventable Catastrophe, page 69. Now, withdrawing the tactical nukes in order to place them in secure places seemed to be a great idea. After all, who wouldn't want to protect the world? It was a part of perestroika, or restructuring of the Soviet Union, and that no one in their right mind could even argue the point. So who could refuse to celebrate this act that was passed of mutual trust with Russia and the United States as one of the greatest achievements to end the Cold War? Nobody could object to it. But truth is stranger than fiction sometimes, and that particular passage of that act was one of the most horrendous mistakes the United States has ever made. The Russians began to withdraw their 22,000 nuclear missiles from everywhere within the former Soviet Union that were aimed at Russia or aimed at Europe. And then they began to fall apart, seemingly the nation of Russia. With the closing of all communal plants and factories, employment began to soar. It reached 30%. Inflation in Russia rocketed to 2,000%. Fuel began to become scarce, and fueling this rise was more than 800 criminal gangs. All of this was found in the book, The World's Most Dangerous Places, page 783. An average of 84 murders took place every day in Moscow. Contract killers carried out most of them. Such a hit could be arranged by members of members of the mafia within Moscow, and they would only charge $200 to kill anyone you wanted. That's the control they began to have. They control the black market. It was a great time and place to get rid of a nagging nightmare. Some of the burdensome business partners that had raised up in Russia, millionaires that controlled some of the businesses, the news media. It was a way to get rid of them so it could return to the old Soviet Union. Millions of Russians waiting in line for hours to redeem government coupons for food. There was one line for red beets and cabbage. Then there was another different line for eggs and bread. Yet another line for vodka and cigarettes. Butcher shops sold blue chickens that had died of malnutrition, and they had pies, made pies of them from rancid beef, horse meat, and roadkill. This is what the people were expected to eat. Smart shoppers soon learn not to buy any of these pies that were surrounded by flies. Almost overnight, the second most powerful nation on earth had been transferred and transformed into a third world country. Now, this was for our Western consumption. Under the new capitalism, male life expectancy fell to 58 years old, 15 to 17 fewer years than Western Europe and the United States male population. All that, once again, was found in the book, The World's Most Dangerous Places. In 1996, the suicide rate in Russia had doubled. Along with poverty, inflation, unemployment, starvation, and depression, Russians experienced a very sharp drop in the birth rate. From 1991 to 2004, the population declined at a rate of 1.2 million people a year. Population experts believe that the Russian population would fall from 147 million people to 114 million by the year 2050. All that was found in Pat Buchanan's book, who happened to have run for the presidency at one time, The Death of the West: How Dying Populations and Immigrant Invasions Imperil Our Country and Civilization, page 102. Mother Russia, in the wake of the fall of communism, was dying, literally the population. Yet in 1991, nowhere was the misery and deprivation more apparent than within the military, which by 1996 had shrunk to a feeble 1.7 million soldiers, over 2.5 million just a few years before. Because of chronic food shortages, many soldiers were forced to resort to begging. From 1991 to 1996, more than 10 Russian soldiers died daily from non-combative causes, including suicide, malnutrition. An estimated 110,000 lacked proper housing and were sheltered in little huddles, and the weather they have there is they would die. No one in the military, not even a high-ranking general or an admiral, was receiving a regular paycheck. It was very irregular. All that was found in the book Nuclear Terrorism, page 70. Russian Army and Navy officers began to sell everything within their command. In 1993, there were 6,430 reported stolen weapons from the arsenals in Russia, ranging from simple assault rifles to tanks. All that was found in the book, once again, The World's Most Dangerous Places, page 783. And the most notorious example of such sales came when an admiral in the Navy, the commander of the Russian Pacific Fleet. In 1997, reports began to surface that whole ships were being sold. They were decommissioned first and then sold. They were declared scrap, sold to foreign buyers. Russian officials denied these reports for years, until they discovered that a 900-foot-long, 47,000-ton aircraft carrier was no longer in service. They began an investigation and the admiral was charged, convicted of selling 64 decommissioned ships, including 2 aircraft carriers, to South Korea and India. And he bagged for himself in an excess of $5 million per craft. That's how cheap they were sold. That was found in the book Nuclear Terrorism, page 70. Where is all this going? We'll see in a moment. Only a non-thinker could believe that it would be possible to move 22,000 nuclear weapons from their locations strategically that surrounded Europe and move them back into Russia and her satellite states without a single loss. When President Bush announced his plans for the nuclear withdrawal, Secretary of Defense Dick Cheney, who later became Vice President, told the press that the recovery and safe transport of 99% of the nukes by the Russians would constitute a very excellent performance. What happened to the other 1%? He said if they achieved 99%, that means there would be a minimum of 220 that would have been lost or stolen by someone. We'll see why that is so important and why it has made the world more dangerous than at any time in human history, even during the Cold War and the threat of nuclear annihilation between Russia and the United States. So what bureaucrat in his or her right mind could expect that an excellent performance could be 1%? They couldn't. Anybody that understands what happened to the nukes, where they've gone, what hands have laid upon them, and are prepared to use them, would be horrified. The temptation will be too great for some saint to resist. If they were to buy them, they would use them. They would no longer be a saint because they would be an exterminator of mankind. They have found a kilo of chromium, number 50, was selling for $25,000 on the black market, stolen from Russia. Cesium-137 for $1 million. And lithium was selling for $10 million on the black market, all stolen from Russian arsenals. All this was found in the book, The Al-Qaeda Connection, page 83. And the list of prospective buyers for this nuclear material just happened to be Egypt, Iran, Libya, North Korea, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and a well-financed group of Muslim terrorists called Al-Qaeda. Notice the similarity of every one of these. They're all Muslim countries. All of them. In the first 3 years after the collapse of the Soviet Union, the black market in nuclear weapons boomed throughout the world. By 1995, German officials were able to document more than 700 attempted sales of nuclear weapons and other types of weapons inside of Germany. Document it. An abridged chronology that was provided by the CIA Director John Deutsch at the time to the United States Senate on March 20th, 1997 included some of the following. Now, I want to remind you, these were the ones that got caught, and the transaction was never completed. But how many did not get caught? How many transactions of this nuclear fissionable material went to the Muslim world. In 1996, on March 17th, Tanzanian police arrested one individual and seized a container of radioactive cesium. On March 9th, Romanian police arrested two individuals for attempting to sell 82 kilograms of radioactive material, including low enriched uranium. 1 kilogram equals 2.2 pounds. So they were attempting to sell it on the black market. On March 4th, 1996, Lithuanian officials determined that 100 kilograms of radioactive materials were seized from an armed gang, and it was uranium-238. On February 23rd, 1996, the Belarus Committee for the State Security, better known as the KGB back then, seized 5 kilograms of cesium-133 in glass containers. This was headed straight to Muslim countries when it was intercepted. On February 12th, 1996, Lithuanian authorities arrested 7 people and seized nearly 100 kilograms of uranium. On February 1st, 1996, Swiss officials arrested a Swiss citizen of Turkish descent for attempting to sell a sample of enriched uranium. Swiss authorities claimed the sample was part of a larger scale operation that was still located in Turkey. On January 25th, 1996, German authorities charged a merchant and his lawyer with crimes stemming from their attempt to sell radioactive cesium that was transported to Germany from Zaire, Africa. It was on a commercial airliner. How would you like to have been on that airliner and this broke loose? Then on January 21st, 1996, a German Parliament commission uncovered German government documents indicating that 3 smugglers offered to supply 11 kilograms of weapons-grade plutonium of Russian origin, which they claimed was enough to build 3 nuclear weapons. Is the world dangerous today? It's according to who has control of these nuclear devices and the materials radioactive that would produce nuclear weapons. In 1995, on December 28th, the Russian Federal Security Service, better known today as the FSB, which replaced the KGB, arrested 9 members of a criminal organization. They seized a quantity of enriched uranium-235 that had been transported to the city by middlemen from Kazakhstan, which is one of these free republics that surround Russia. On December 2nd, 1995, Italian prosecutors arrested a man with reported links to the CIA. He also had links to the mafia as part of an investigation into smuggling radioactive materials, money laundering, and arms trafficking. The 72-year-old man reportedly has dual Italian and United States citizenship and retired from the CIA only 2 years before that. He was selling nuclear devices and the materials to make them. It had all been stolen from Russian arsenals that were supposedly 99% accurate when they moved it. On November 30th, 1995, a former Greenpeace president revealed that the organization had been offered a nuclear warhead by a disgruntled former Soviet officer. He wanted to highlight the very lax Russian security. On November 29th, 1995, Russian security officials recovered 4 containers of radioactive cesium that had been stolen from an industrial plant in the Ural Mountains and arrested the thieves. The containers were similar to those that allegedly was planted by Chechenian rebels in a Moscow park to show that the Chechenians did have nuclear materials. On November 23rd, 1995, acting on a tip, Chechenian separatist leader Shamal Basayev, these Russian names are not easy to pronounce, the Russian television reporters discovered a 32-kilogram container. Reportedly, it had cesium-137. This was all in a Moscow park, showing that any time the Chechenians wanted to, they could wipe out the city of Moscow. Who were the Chechenians? The Chechenians are Muslims. They're not Arabs by race, but they were converted to the Muslim religion many centuries ago. They're fierce fighters. They do not want to be a part of Russia or the Russian combine to control their destiny. On November 23rd, 1995, a German court sentenced businessman Adolf Jackel to 5.5 years for smuggling weapons-grade plutonium into the country. Investigators made the first in a series of plutonium seizures in Germany when they raided his home. And then in 1994, they even found more materials before that. In 1995, on November 11th, Russian Federal Security Service officials arrested 2 Lithuanian citizens in one of their cities for smuggling 10 kilograms of uranium-238 into Russia. 3 Russians also were arrested for attempting to sell uranium. This is radioactive material. Both the Lithuanians and the Russians claimed that poverty had induced them to attempt to traffic and smuggle nuclear materials. On November 7th, 1995, during a car search at the Polish-Czechoslovakian border, Polish border guards discovered 11 cigarette pack-sized containers filled with strontium-90 radioactive materials. On November 7th, 1995, the same day, Iranian press reports indicate law enforcement authorities arrested 5 Iranians. They seized 9 packets of enriched uranium in their capital city of Tehran, and then in 2 other cities also. On October 25th, 1995, the cleaning staff at Moscow's second airport found a small lead container, and it was packed with radioactive substances in the men's restroom. Authorities believe the smuggler lost his nerve and abandoned the material, but we'll really never know. On October 19th, 1995, according to Der Stern, a newspaper, I believe, in Germany, nuclear weapons smugglers involved in smuggling Russian-origin plutonium into Germany. And then in August of 1994, stored 8 to 10 kilograms of weapon-grade plutonium in Berlin. The article also implicated highly placed Russians in the smuggling activity. On October 14th, 1995, and all this is leading up to something just to show you that there is an attempt on the world scene to bring us to the brink of oblivion. On October 14th, 1995, Russian mafia figures were behind a 1993 theft of radioactive beryllium from a Russian nuclear laboratory, and they had a failed attempt to sell the material in the West. On September 1st, 1995, Bulgarian police broke an international nuclear smuggling ring composed of Russians and Ukrainians. The arrests were the culmination of a year-long undercover sting operation. On June 15th, 1995, press reports indicated that Romanian authorities had seized 24 kilograms of uranium powder and tablets. In 1994, they arrested 24 people for involvement in nuclear smuggling. And they actually seized 10.35 kilograms of uranium powder and tablets. From 1989 to 1993, the Romanians reportedly broke up 5 separate gangs, arrested 50 separate people, and seized 230 kilograms of nuclear materials. All destinations were for the Muslim world. On April 13th, 1995, Slovakian police culminated a long investigation with the discovery of 18.39 kilograms of nuclear material, 17.5 kilograms of which apparently was U-238, in a car stop near one of the cities in eastern Slovakia. On April 5th, 1995, 4 brass containers weighing 2 kilos each of radio americium number 241 and cesium 137 were stolen from a storeroom of isotopes in Wrocław, Poland. On April 4th, 1995, 6 kilograms of U-235 and then U-238. Radium and palladium were found in a Kyiv apartment. Occupants were former Army officials, a lieutenant colonel, and a warrant officer. The nuclear material reportedly came directly from Russia, headed for the Middle East. On March 14th, 1995, Polish police, in one of the provinces, arrested a man for possession of uranium. Then on March 8th, 1995, Italian police arrested a man for a murder in a plutonium smuggling case that had gone awry. The victim didn't have the money to pay, so they snuffed out his life. This occurred in Bulgaria. Then on January 25th, 1995, Lithuanian border police, using United States supplied radiation detector equipment, seized tons of radioactive wolfram hidden in a secret compartment of a truck. Wolfram is tungsten, which has a short half-life. This shipment was probably infected by a radioactive contaminant that was to be used in dirty bombs. In 1994, on December 14th, Czech police seized 2.72 kilograms of material, later identified as 87.7% enriched U-235. This was in Prague, Czechoslovakia. This was the largest recorded seizure of such material that police arrested a Czech nuclear physicist who had it, and 2 citizens from the former Soviet Union. The material was found in the back seat of a car while it was parked in an alley. On December 10th, 1994, and remember I'm leading up to something, Hungarian border guards seized 1.7 kilograms of uranium and arrested 4 Slovakians. The material, reactor fuel grade uranium, was concealed in a fruit jar. It doesn't take large quantities of these materials to make nuclear weapons, nuclear grade weapons. Doesn't have to be a bomb, but it can be other types of weapons. On December 6, 1994, Pravda, which happened to be Russia's leading daily newspaper, reported that 3 staffers of the Institute of Nuclear Physicists were convicted of stealing 4.5 kilograms of enriched uranium. It went straight to the black market. It was intercepted. On November 10th, 1994, Hungarian police discovered 22 kilograms of radioactive material in the trunk of a car. 3 suspects were arrested. In November of 1994, German police seized 1 milligram of cesium-137 and arrested 2 suspects. On October 19th, 1994, Turkish police arrested a man trying to sell 750 grams of uranium. On October 17th, 1994, Russian authorities seized 72 kilograms of U-238 and an unknown quantity of U-235 and detained 12 members of a criminal gang. Now, this is uranium-235. Uranium-238. This is weapons-grade materials. In October of 1994, 4 Indian, that's the country of India, villagers were arrested attempting to sell 2.5 kilograms of what they call yellow cake uranium because it's extracted from ore. So it's called yellow cake. On October 13th, 1994, Bulgarian officials seized 4 lead capsules of radioactive material. The capsules were found on a bus en route to Turkey. Police they arrested and detained the 2 bus drivers. On October 10th, 1994, Romanian authorities arrested 7 people, seized 7 kilograms of uranium and an unidentified quantity of strontium or cesium. On October 1st, 1994, Romanian police arrested 4 people trying to sell more than 4 kilograms of U-235 and U-238. In October of 1994, Russian authorities arrested 3 men trying to sell 67 kilograms of U-238. In September 28th, 1994, Romanian authorities arrested several individuals attempting to sell 4.5 kilograms of uranium tetrachloride, which is 61.9% uranium. They were going to sell it for $35,000 per kilogram on the black market. On September 28, 1994, Slovakian officials arrested 4 Slovaks for trying to smuggle almost 1 kilogram of U-235 into Hungary. September 11th, 1994, German police arrested a Zaire from the country of Zaire in Africa, a Zaire national attempting to smuggle 850 grams of uranite into Germany. September 7th, 1994, Russian police arrested 3 people trying to sell 100 kilograms of uranium-238. On September 5th, 1994, Bulgarian authorities arrested 6 Bulgarians in connection with and seized 19 containers of radioactive material. In September of 1994, a Pole from the country of Poland was sentenced to 3 years in prison for trying to sell 1 kilogram of uranium-235-238 in Germany. Then on August 29th, 1994, Hungarian police arrested 2 men and seized 4.4 kilograms of material believed to be fuel rods from a reactor in Russia. On August 20th, 1994, Russian authorities arrested 2 men attempting to sell 9.5 kilograms of uranium-238, and this was from a nuclear weapons research facility in Russia. On August 18th, 1994, Estonian police arrested a man and seized 3 kilograms of U-238 that he had buried under his garage. On August 18th, 1994, about 100 uranium-contaminated drums were stolen from South Africa's Atomic Energy Corporation plant. That was in the Transvaal area of South Africa. On August 12th, 1994, St. Petersburg, Russia police arrested 3 men trying to sell 60 kilograms of unidentified nuclear material. August 12th, 1994, German police in Bremen, Germany, arrested a German for attempting to sell 2 grams of plutonium, reportedly, that he received from a Russian scientist. On August 10th, 1994, more than 500 grams of nuclear material were seized at the Munich, Germany airport. 2 men were arrested for possession of 363 grams of weapons-grade plutonium-239. On July 19th, 1994, Turkish National Police arrested 7 Turks and seized 12 kilograms of weapons-grade uranium. That's what you make the bomb from. In July of 1994, Russian authorities discovered 5.5 kilograms of uranium-238 that had been stolen from one of their nuclear facilities. In July of 1994, police in Romania arrested 5 Romanians trying to sell 2.6 kilograms of Russian uranium. In June of 1994, Russian security officials announced the arrest of 3 Russians in St. Petersburg who tried to sell 3.5 kilograms of bomb-grade uranium. In June of 1994, Russian authorities arrested 3 officers from the Northern Fleet. The officers were accused of stealing 4.5 kilograms of uranium-238 from their base in November of 1993. In June of 1994, police in Romania arrested 3 Romanians for trying to sell 3 kilograms of uranium tablets. Now, why would uranium tablets be of importance? You can place 1 uranium tablet in someone's office, and over the next week to week and a half, they will die from radiation. Nobody would even know that it was placed there. This is how dangerous the world has become. It could be placed in anyone's office. In May of 1994, German police discovered a small but very worrisome quantity of super-grade plutonium in the garage of Adolf Jackel in Germany. Extremely expensive to produce, this very rare item came from one of the plants in Russia. Yes, it was one of their premier nuclear weapons laboratories where it came from. Only 1 or 2 more statements to give a little history of those who were caught. In November of 1993, 2 employees of one of the buildings, plants where they assembled weapons in Russia, were arrested for stealing 2 nuclear warheads, which they had hidden in a residential garage. It's that simple. You have a garage, you can cover up a nuclear warhead. In November, in a case stemming from an incident in November of 1993, in which a Russian naval officer stole 4 kilograms of 20% enriched uranium-235 nuclear fuel rods from one of their shipyards near Murmansk. A Russian court found the officer guilty, but gave him a suspended sentence because he admitted the act. Now, if he knew how to steal it one time and he was turned free, surely he would know how to steal them the second time. The police thwarted all of these incidences that I mentioned. Isn't that comforting? But what about all the incidences in which they were not captured? Did the nuclear trafficking come to an end in 1996? Thanks largely to a Pakistani, the sales continued on a much grander scale throughout the next decade, all the way through the year 2006. Notice what it did say in Mark 13, verse 8, the last part. After all the wars and rumors of wars, wars of liberation, these are the beginning of sorrows. Simple statement. The beginning of sorrows. How could this be? What kind of sorrows is it going to be? In the 1990s, the Chechen mafia became the dominant force in trafficking of nuclear weapons and materials in the world. Throughout Russian history, the Chechens had proved themselves to be not only incredibly dangerous, but also totally uncontrollable. Religiously and ethnically, they are Muslims. but not Arabs. They were converted to Muslimism. They were descended from the Tartars, the western tide of the Golden Horde of Mongolian warriors such as Genghis Khan. They had settled in the great Caucasus Mountains. There they refused to assimilate into Russian culture, even though they had been captured by Russia. They would not accept the Russian language. They wouldn't accept their traditions. They hung on to their own traditions. They lived in what they call clans. During World War II, Joseph Stalin, upon discovering several Chechen leaders had collaborated with the Germans, they stuffed about 500,000 of their warriors into boxcars and shipped them off to Siberia to work them until they fell dead. After being returned, they were called repatriated. They returned to Chechnya. They were repatriated by Nikita Khrushchev in the 1950s. Chechen gangs formed the largest criminal organization in the Soviet Union by engaging in kidnapping, extortion, grand-scale theft, drugs, prostitution, contract killing, arms running, and bank fraud. By 1995, more than $12 billion had poured into Chechen accounts in Switzerland and Cyprus. And all this information came from the book, The World's Most Dangerous Places, page 784. When the black market in nuclear bombs opened up, the Chechens became the leading buyers. In March of 1993, they secured an unknown quantity of highly enriched uranium from Kazakhstan. More than 6 kilograms were transported from Grozny, their mountain capital in Chechnya, to Istanbul, Turkey. 6 months later, Interpol officers arrested 4 Turkish businessmen and 4 Iranian agents, confiscated 2.5 kilos of the uranium. The remaining kilos slipped through the old proverbial crack. It disappeared. No one knew where it went. All this was found in an article, The Real Threat of Nuclear Smuggling, in the Scientific American, January of 1996. In September of 1993, when Chechnya launched its war of independence from Russia, Chechen rebels stunned the world by displaying SS-20 missiles stolen out of Russian arsenals. They were on parade in the capital city of Grozny for all the world to see. The missiles had been stolen from Soviet arsenals. They possessed a range of nearly 6,000 miles. They could hit anywhere in Europe. They had the capability of launching nuclear warheads. All that was found in Chechnya's Special Weapons Global Security, October 2001. Are we coming to a dangerous world? We're not through yet. In Moscow, the Chechen mafia began using radioactive isotopes, which could be purchased at rock-bottom prices, to commit contract murder hits. The first victim was Vladimir Kaplan, the owner of a meatpacking plant. the Chechnyans simply planted gamma ray emitting pellets that I had mentioned before in his office. The businessman died of radiation poisoning within a few weeks. At least half a dozen similar cases were reported over the next 3 years. And that was found in the Security or Global Security October 2001 report. A simple pellet that gave off the rays. In November of 1994, the leader of the Chechen rebels petitioned the United Nations to dispatch peacekeeping forces to protect the weapons of mass destruction within the Chechen arsenal from the Russian troops that had been dispatched to squash the rebels' activities. They also asked the United States to help to solve their problem of having all of these nuclear weapons and Russia trying to invade their territory. This forced the leader of the Chechen rebels to provide visible proof, since the United States and the United Nations did nothing. So they had to prove that they had nuclear weapons and capability of using them. So on November 23rd, 1995, the Chechen commander directed a television crew to a plastic bag that had been planted in a park near Moscow. The bag contained 32 kilograms of cesium-137. All that information was found in the book Jihad War, National Review, October 4th, 2002. So CIA Director John Deutsch, while appearing before the Senate, downplayed this incident, maintaining that the cesium, if wrapped around a conventional explosive and detonated, would have only minimal effect. There would be no hazardous health effects from it. Deutsch's statements shows how little he and the CIA know about radiological material. In the best of circumstances, only the explosion would have killed a few hundred that were close by. But the blast would have distributed the cesium particles that are so small you can't hardly see them. They're like a pinpoint over several square miles in a metropolitan area, Moscow, Russia. Within minutes, the microscopic particles would begin to stick to everything: the skin, clothing, cars, buses, buildings, sidewalks. If you stepped on it, the soles of your shoes. All that information was found, and Dirty Bomb threatens United States with an ex-terror attack, straight out of the USA Today newspaper, June 2002. A single grain of cesium, if it's inhaled or ingested, is a bone sucker, according to that article. It heads straight to the marrow to halt the production of platelets for the blood and to cause mutation of cells. Within days of the blast, Russians exposed to those particles would begin displaying the first symptoms of radiation poisoning: bleeding from the nose and the mouth, diarrhea, hair loss, purple fingernails, high fever and delirium. Several hundred would die within a matter of days or weeks. Their bodies would have to be buried in lead caskets to prevent any further contamination, according to that USA Today article, June 11th, 2002. Hundreds of others within a matter of years will develop various forms of malignancy: thyroid cancer, pancreatic cancer, liver cancer, breast cancer, cancer of the reproductive organs, and brain tumors. That was reported in that article. The cesium would have other results. Decontamination efforts would require that the radioactive particles be removed. How do you do that without it getting on you? But removing cesium particles is not easy. I don't know of anybody that would want to volunteer. They can't be blown away or washed away. Why? It would go into the water system. The cleanup effort would require, according to that article, based upon facts, it would require the dumping of mounds of sand over the exposed area. The soil would have to be covered with fresh soil several feet deep. It would require the removal of all trees, every one of them cut down and removed. All shrubbery that any of this cesium could have attached itself to. The killing of household pets, and the raising or destruction of structures throughout the city. All that would have to be done in order to get rid of the cesium. And that part of my message today was found in Dirty Bombs, Response to a Threat, Journal of the Federation of American Scientists, March-April 2002. So the CIA and John Deutsch dismissed all of this as minimal, as not important. The plastic bag that was found in that park near Moscow should have caused immediate attention and alarm in the United States and the United Nations. But when you understand that the United Nations only represents united nothing, then you understand that they would not respond. At the very least, the International Atomic Energy Agency should have responded. They should have contacted the leader of the Chechenian rebels and worked out a deal. But not one word went by. There was no contact made with the rebels to secure all of these weapons. So shortly after this incident, the Chechenian rebel notified the United States State Department that he possessed tactical nuclear suitcase bombs that he was willing to sell to rogue states such as Iran, Syria, Libya, Sudan, you keep naming them, or terrorist organizations such as Al-Qaeda, unless the United States recognized Checheny's independence from Russia. Officials from the National Intelligence Council, which is an umbrella organization for the United States community, they analyze every word that somebody says and comes back with an answer. They did support the Chechenian leader's claim that he had nuclear suitcase bombs. The officials informed a congressional committee that weapons-grade materials and weapons, nuclear materials, including small atomic demolition munitions, had been stolen from Soviet stockpiles. And of these thefts, according to the warning, according to this committee, we assess that undetected smuggling has occurred, although we do not know the extent of the magnitude. That was found in One Point Safe, page 101 to 103. Despite the testimony, no high-ranking Washington official sought further verification whether the Chechenian rebels were telling the truth that they had these suitcase nuclear bombs or not. Yet the report of nuclear suitcase bombs in the hands of the Chechenians had received verification from other sources. Special Forces Sergeant Jonathan Keith Adema, he had been sent by the Pentagon to work with the Lithuanian KGB, trying to get rid of all the nuclear weapons in that area. In 1992, Adema reported that weapons-grade nuclear weapons and materials had not simply leaked into the black market, but they were pouring into the black market. And several suitcase nukes were acquired by the Chechenians. His reports were dismissed because he refused to provide the names of the informants to the FBI. Adema's reluctance was based upon his knowledge of what happens when you talk. In Russia, you die. All this was found in the case of Keith Adema. Newsmax.com, July 22nd, 2004. But there's more. The Center for Non-Proliferation Studies at the Monterey Institute of International Studies out in California, they received confirmation from a senior advisor to Boris Yeltsin that an unspecified number of suitcase nuclear devices had been manufactured by for the KGB, but had not been listed on the Soviet nuclear inventory. That was found in a review of the nuclear suitcase bomb controversy, September 2003, a policy update to the United States government. They built, according to these individuals, 7,000 nuclear suitcase bombs and didn't even report it on the inventory, so that it would be a secret. So that when they agreed to get rid of all their nuclear materials and store them, those 7,000 would be unaccounted for. They could go round the world to surround the United States. So not being able to deal with the United Nations or the United States, the leader of the Chechenian rebels sold the suitcase bombs to the next party in line, who had deep pockets full of money. One of them was Osama bin Laden. The Al-Qaeda had gladly paid $30 million in cold cash and 2 tons of choice heroin, and then $20 million for other suitcase bombs. So they have nuclear bombs and suitcase bombs, costing $30 million plus tons of heroin and $20 million apiece. As soon as the deal was consummated, bin Laden issued his declaration of war against the American occupation of the land of the two holy places. Long title, like my sermons. But that was the title, and it was declared on August 23rd, 1996. Those two holy places were Medina and Mecca. And the reason why he did this is because the American people are considered infidels because we're not Muslims. No infidel, according to the Quran, is to ever have occupying military forces on their soil. They are never to get close to their holy places, Medina and Mecca. But George Herbert Walker Bush built a permanent military facility between the two cities, and they're there to this day. And so Osama bin Laden declared war against America. The infidel. No wonder he's going around spending millions of dollars accumulating nuclear-grade weapons and nuclear weapons, suitcase bombs. Any doubts that Al-Qaeda was involved in business transactions with the Chechens should have all been put to rest when Russian security police arrested Zawahiri, his right-hand man. He was at the Chechen border in December of 1996. Zawahiri, with his beard shaved off to give him a different look, and his hair closely cropped, was traveling under the anonymous name of Mr. Amin. Two Al-Qaeda operatives and a Chechen guide accompanied him. As his travel in April of 1997, or as his trial in Russia, Zawahiri allegedly, and I quote, lied fluently and prayed fervently and frequently, end of quote. When asked what he was doing, he said he went to Chechnya to check out the price of leather, medicine, and other goods. So, lacking sufficient evidence of any wrongdoing, they had to release him. That was all found in the book Terrorism and Political Violence, put out in the winter of 2002. Even when news of the sale received headlines in such reputable news outlets as The Times of London, England, the BBC, British Broadcast Corporation, the Jerusalem Report, and other Middle Eastern newspapers, Washington, D.C. officials opted that the threat could not be believed. So there was no consequence to it. That was found in the book, The Al-Qaeda Connection, page 92. So the world is in trouble because Osama bin Laden and because the Muslims' beliefs that no infidel should ever set foot in their land and plant a military presence there. So it is war to the death, either the Muslims or the Christian West. There is no doubt they've said so out of their own mouth. They displayed the same attitude, our government, when Hamid Mir, a celebrated Pakistani journalist, testified that he had visited laboratories in Afghanistan where Al-Qaeda scientists and Russian technicians worked to maintain and upgrade suitcase nukes. And that was also found in Terrorism and Political Violence, page 93, produced the winter of 2002. So the lack of interest by Washington, D.C. in what was really going on was very astonishing, because the former Russian Security Council Secretary Alexander Lebed, during a closed session with the United States congressional delegation in 1997, testified that more than 84 of these weapons had disappeared from Russian arsenals and could be in the hands of Muslim extremists. And all that was straight out of the article, Are Suitcase Nukes on the Loose? The story behind the controversy. And it was put out by the Center for Non-Proliferation Studies in November 1997. All of this is documented. There are nuclear weapons out there in the hands of these people. What are their goals? Why do they have them? What will they do with them eventually? Lebed from Russia, defector to the United States, was not alone in providing such testimony. His statements also supported other Russian defectors, a former head of the Russian Security Council, who told a United States Congressional Committee that tactical nukes designed to fit within a suitcase had been manufactured by the Soviet Union, and that he received reports that several suitcase nukes were missing, and they were more than likely in Chechnyan Mafian hands. These are serious things on the world scene today. Is the world more dangerous than it's ever been before? Those who have studied the drive for world government knew that the Cold War was a farce. It was a threat to cause the United States and Russia to join the United Nations and work together for a one world government. They had no intention of dropping the bombs, but now we have a new actor on the scene, radical Muslims that take their religion very serious. You and I are infidels. Americans setting foot on their soil are infidels and intruders. Additional corroboration came from an environmental advisor to Russian President Boris Yeltsin. He maintained that more than 700 nuclear suitcase bombs had been produced for the KGB, and the whereabouts was anybody's guess. They didn't know where they were. Congressional officials and members of the national press didn't seek any further substantiation of these accounts. Not even when United Nations Weapons Inspector Hans Blix expressed his opinion that the accounts of the transactions between the Chechens and Al-Qaeda were accurate. It was his job. That was found in the book Osama's Nukes Traced to Soviet General. Facts, truth, danger in the world. That's what we're looking at right now. Those individuals in Washington and the congressional committees expressed doubts that the technical or tactical weapons were ever produced, despite the fact that 3,300 small nukes, portable nukes, remained in United States arsenals. We had them. Some were designed to fit into luggage that could be carried right on an airplane. others to be carried in backpacks to cross the soft underbelly of the United States with Mexico, and still others to be fired from recoilless rifles. All that could be found in the book Nuclear Terrorism, page 48 and 49. Intelligence officials were aware that bin Laden had begun to search for nuclear weapons and other weapons in 1993 because America had built their permanent military base on their holy soil, they believed. In 1993, during his sojourn in the Sudan, they knew that he was looking for enriched uranium. Sudan had become a very pivotal shipping place and shipping point for the black market nukes. It's on the eastern side of Africa. These goods flowed from Russia to Germany to Sudan to places like Iran, Libya, and Pakistan. All that could be found in the book Weapons of Mass Destruction in the Middle East, April 1999 publication. The key Al-Qaeda agent in charge of all these procuring the nuclear weapons was a man whose last name was Salim, S-A-L-I-M. He was an electrical engineer from Iraq. Salim combed the world looking for nuclear weapons. He eventually was arrested in Germany in 1998 while attempting to purchase them in that country for bin Laden. All that was found in an indictment of United States Attorney General's Office, Southern District of New York, January 6, 1999. He was extradited to the United States, where to this day he's sitting in prison and never been tried for anything. How much nuclear material did this man find for Al-Qaeda? How much did they procure? It's unknown. But their results, the efforts they went through, was very considerable. The CIA even revealed later that bin Laden established a laboratory in Khartoum in 1993. He hired a physicist from the Middle East to work on this project to create nuclear weapons capable of killing millions of Americans. And that was the exact statement. Not Europeans, not Africans, but Americans. All that was found in the book Al-Qaeda, In Search of the Terror Network That Threatens the World, page 59. Bin Laden, to his credit, made no secret of what he was doing. On several occasions, he asserted, and I quote, "It is the duty of Muslims to possess these weapons," end of quote. That came from a fact sheet. The charges against Osama bin Laden, United States Department of State, December 15th, 1999. But who was it that brought us into such dire straits other than the building of that military arsenal there in Saudi Arabia, close to the two sacred Muslim cities? A man by the name of William Jefferson Clinton. We all in America know who he was. We know that they were involved, he and his wife, in unscrupulous business activities. We knew that he lied straight to the cameras and all the American people who watch television about his sexual escapades. But he was a funny clown, and so America didn't get rid of him. It was hilarious. What performance was he going to give us next? It was sort of like he was playing one of the Blues Brothers on Saturday Night Live. He was so comical, but he was not comical to other people in the world. Clinton can tell a whopper with a straight face. He could take one word because his wife was a lawyer, and they could make that one word twisted till nobody could get the truth from him. However, some of the consequences of Mr. Clinton's behavior has affected all America today. America before the world community no longer could claim to be a righteous and morally decent nation, not by allowing him to continue in the presidency of the United States by performing all of these hideous acts. But you see, Osama bin Laden pointed this out in a letter that he wrote to America. I will quote that letter. You are a nation that permits acts of immorality, and you consider them to be pillars of personal freedom. Who can forget your President Clinton's immoral acts committed in the official Oval Office? After that, you did not even bring him to account. Other than that, he made a mistake. After which everything passed with no punishment. Is there a worse kind of event for which your name will go down in history and be remembered by nations? End of quote. He basically said we're an immoral country. We let our own president get away with it. We didn't punish him. So America will go down in history as an immoral nation. To be condemned by bin Laden was bad enough. To be unable to refute his allegations was even worse. It shows the depravity of the United States of America today. Notice 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 2 to 5. For men shall be lovers of their own selves. In other words, selfish, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, which means no self-control, fierce, despisers of those that are good, traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasures more than lovers of God, having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. Paul said, from such turn away. While the American people were complacent before Clinton's outrageous behavior, the president was complacent before the gathering storm that was about to be unleashed upon America. Bin Laden's declaration of war against America, jihad. In fact, Clinton ignored verified accounts that Al-Qaeda had acquired nuclear weapons. He just totally ignored it. Didn't care. It was a policy of arising from the prevailing spirit of bread and circuses that he was placing before the American people. Oh, don't listen to Al-Qaeda. They don't have nuclear weapons. Just watch my clown act. And that got the people's minds away from what was really happening to place them in danger all around the world. Remember, they had circuses in Rome, and the barbarians were at the door. They didn't look and they didn't see the barbarians because they wanted the next gladiator to be killed by the lions, the next group of Christians to be killed by the lions. But the blunder of ignoring nuclear threats, which may remain the greatest blunder in United States history, was in keeping with other blunders that were committed by some of the most vile presidents we've ever had. When the first terrorist attack on American soil took place on February 26, 1993, with a bombing of the World Trade Center, Bill Clinton, instead of declaring it a war on terrorism or on Al-Qaeda or the Muslim extremists around the world, he said, "We will treat the matter as a criminal incident." There was no immediate response. They finally tracked them down and they took them to trial in a court of law. That's not the way they do it in other parts of the world. And in other parts of the world, they look at us and they say, America is a paper tiger. They're no longer the greatest nation on earth. They're immoral. They're decadent. That's what the communists say. In Somalia, Clinton allowed General Adid, an anti-American warlord with a tribe of warriors and nothing but machetes and a few shoulder-operated equipment to shoot down a Black Hawk helicopter, kill our Marines and our boys and drag their bodies through the streets. Who was it that financed it? Osama bin Laden. And yet, Bill Clinton was offered by the country of Sudan to take bin Laden into captivity and extradite him to America. But he said no. He turned it down. But does Al-Qaeda have a nuclear arsenal today? Is there any kind of threat to America that we're going to see that Jesus Christ said all these are the beginning of sorrows? The enormity of the blunders by the Clinton administration and the Bush before that pale in comparison with Clinton's decision to ignore the reports that bin Laden had gained control of the Afghanistan poppy fields and was spending millions of dollars that he received from that for his new nuclear project. He purchased 48 additional suitcase bombs from the Russian mafia, similar devices from Central Asian countries, and some from the Ukraine arms dealers. But bin Laden purchased more than 20 kilos of uranium-236 so he could manufacture his own nuclear weapons. For one delivery of 12 to 15 kilos, one of his men that he had transacting business for him received a payment of $70 million. The uranium had been enriched to 85%, far above the standard weapons-grade material that is used in nuclear weapons. He purchased several bars of enriched uranium from Egyptian black marketeers, and then 20 nuclear warheads from Russia and several other areas such as the Ukraine. All the way and all the time, as his money flowed, he acquired enough radioactive material to plant a dirty bomb in every major American city. Every. No exception. And all of this was found in the book, The Next Attack on America, November 27th, 2003. The belief that bin Laden simply obtained these weapons to keep them in his cave somewhere in Afghanistan or Pakistan is rather ridiculous. He got them because he is a religious fanatic. He believes that the United States of America and all their people that are not Muslim are infidels. He has received this weaponry, and he himself is not some kind of backward camel jockey, as most of the world think he is, because he wears some kind of a long white robe and something over his head. He was trained. He was trained to be an engineer. And he's one of the most gifted military tacticians in contemporary history. This is who America is facing.